Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be remedying a problem that I have. My garage is starting to fill up with clutter, which is making videos in here quite time consuming as I have to keep shuffling things around to make space. On top of that, I have got a shed outside which I have to keep going and getting things out of or putting things away, and that's got rather full also. So the simplest thing I can think of in the short term is just to make a couple of shelves to give more things a home in here. Now, woodwork isn't really my thing, but as they're only going in here, I thought I could have a little bit of fun with them, as it doesn't really matter how they turn out, except I'm showing everyone on the internet, but as long as they don't fall off the wall, I'm going to be happy. Reclaimed scaffolding boards seem to be quite popular at the moment for making shelves, so I hopped on the internet to see if I could pick some up, but I found a company that was selling new scaffolding boards for far cheaper, so I bought a couple of them and they even overnighted them to me for free, so can't be bad. Rather than using oil, paint or varnish to finish them off, I have seen people using food dye to colour them, so I thought maybe that would be fun to give a go. Also, I thought it'd be fun to try the Japanese art of Shou Sugi Ban. Shou Sugi Ban? Shou Sugi Ban. Shou Sugi Ban. Shou Sugi Ban. I also thought it would be fun to try the Japanese art of Shou Sugi Ban. I'm just going to burn the wood. So now I've butchered the Japanese language, let's get to it. So these are the brackets that I picked up to make the shelves. It's just a simple L bracket really with a little bit of a lip on. That's the exact width of the board. Two holes at the back. It came with the fittings, which are these long thin screws, two of them in each bracket. I don't really want to be drilling deep holes into the walls of the garage as it's really old and they'll probably go through all the way through with that length. So what I plan on doing is, if you can see, I've got all these studs that stick out of the wall that holds the garage together. So what I'm planning on doing is widening a hole to mount over the stud. I'll then have a bolt going through the second hole, which will be adjustable, which will just push off the wall to hopefully just keep the shelf level. Hopefully it'll all just make sense when you see me do it. Firstly, the holes aren't big enough for the studs sticking out of the wall, so I'll have to widen them, and also they're not level in the wall, so I'm going to have to drill an extra hole in one bracket just to keep the whole thing level. I began by cleaning off the threads with a wire brush, and then I used a sacrificial nut just to wind on and off the threads just to get rid of anything that I might have missed, and naturally I dropped it. Whoever invented these extendable magnets is an absolute genius. Next, I marked out my levels. I couldn't find a pencil in all the mess, so I just used some tape. I then measured the studs to see how much bigger I needed to make the holes in my bracket. I'm sorry about the focus, I'm still struggling to get that quite right. I am working on it, I promise. And on with the first bracket. As you can see, the level is off, so I can use my adjustable bolt idea to push the lower part of the bracket away from the wall. Now the level's off the other way, but when the board is added, the extra weight should hopefully cause the bracket to flex level. For the other side, I needed to make my own hole in the bracket so the shelf will sit level. I had to modify my plan for an adjustable bolt. I thought I could get a nut between the bracket and the wall, but there wasn't enough room, so I used washers instead. No big deal, it works just fine. Now I just needed to repeat everything here for my second shelf, which means I can throw away this light that likes to randomly turn off. this is where I encountered a small flaw in my plan. Oh there. The threads for my adjustable bolts were stopping the boards from sitting properly in the brackets. A quick look on Facebook Marketplace and someone was selling a cheap router close by. I'd never used one before, so a quick read of the instructions and a couple of videos and I was YouTube certified. My first use of a router was a success. This notch should be enough to make room for the bolt threads. Oh yes. Oh, those little notches are perfect. And there. Let's see what we got. Spot on. Not quite level that way. It's the same all the way along. But then I would prefer it to tip back slightly so everything will go back towards the wall rather than come off. And depending on how much weight I put on it, it might still bend forwards. Oh, I'm well happy with that. Well happy. One more to go. As these notches went so well, my confidence grew. Next I had to cut out a really big notch all the way through one of the shelves because of an electrical conduit. Then disaster. I took out a huge chunk of wood. I realised my mistake afterwards. I didn't have a bit big enough for the size I wanted to cut out, so I used a smaller bit, which should have been fine. What I did was make the first pass on the left side, which was fine. But my second pass, I moved to the right and was trying to cut using the wrong side of the bit, which was rotating outwards, which caused the wood to split. In hindsight, what I should have done is start on the right side and made several passes slowly moving left, with the bit rotating inwards. That should have worked. It's in. Look, I have severely misjudged this conduit. That's nice and tidy there. Nice and tidy there. That's miles out. Look how much space is there. Look at that. Now, this one isn't quite so good. Not terrible. It's not terrible. It's fractionally off centre. The wood is a bit twisted on this one. I'll give you a close up. The wood's got a bow in it, so this front edge is sort of pointing downwards, but same as the other one though, level wise for the majority, that's facing back towards the wall. But never mind. Like I said at the start of the video, it don't matter if they turn out terrible because they're just shelves in a garage. Well, it seems I've spent half the afternoon trying to figure out how to use a router. I'm hungry and it's tea time, so I'm going to pick this up in the morning. So it's the next day. As I've said, these are new boards, so if you look closely, there are what I'm assuming are saw marks from when they were cutting the planks. From videos that I've seen, nobody has done any prep work to the wood before they've burnt it, but in most of these cases they were working with reclaimed wood, so I'm going to assume it was to maintain that reclaimed look. So once again, woodwork is something that I'm not really into. I'll do a little bit if I have to, but like all things that are painted or coated, I know to get a good result, most of the work goes into the preparation. So out came the sander. Now, I intentionally didn't sand the boards completely smooth, as although I'm sure I'm completely right about what I've said on preparation, the scientist in me is a little bit curious. If I were to leave some marks on them, how much would they show through at the end? And as I've already took a chunk out of one of the shelves, I figured why not find out what happens. After all, they are going in the garage, just as I said, so ultimately the end result is not very important, and we'll see if we learn something. With the sanding done, it's cleaned up the boards for the most part, but you can still make out some of the saw marks going across the grain of the wood. Now we've got to the fun part, the fire. I've had this pack of butane gas in the shed for ages, so this seems like as good a time as any to use it. I also have some MAP gas, just to see if that makes much difference. I've noticed most people use propane for this, but I'm just going with what I've got. And of course, safety first, I have a spray bottle full of water and a fire extinguisher just in case. Also I've got a garden hose just in case things get really out of hand. It's highly unlikely, but best be safe than sorry. So with the butane gas, I began. It was a little bit breezy, which you can't see, so I did reposition myself so the wind was behind me. Using these little butane canisters wasn't the fastest process. I could burn the wood to the extent I was going for, but it just took some time. You can burn the wood from extremely light to really heavy, which people say makes the wood look like crocodile skin. I was aiming for something sort of in the middle. Obviously the different levels of burning will affect the end result. Shou Sugi Ban, or Yakisugi, is an ancient Japanese way of preserving wood, helping it resist water and pests. Charring the wood alters its structure. Basically, it shrinks the cells in the wood, which in turn reduces the amount of moisture they can absorb. As the cells shrink, they become more dense, so in turn the wood becomes a lot stronger. I can't think of a better group of qualities to have for garage shelves, so this process isn't just for cosmetic purposes. After charring one side, I thought I'd give the MAP gas a go. It did feel twice as quick as the butane, but it was still very slow. I can see why people who do this professionally use those large propane torches. That's the burning stage done. Notice now how much you can see those saw marks going across the grain of the wood. Now we start to brush off the loose flaky ash and soot, which should make the grain of the wood start to stand out. I'm using a nylon bristle brush, the kind that you would use to clean tile floors. I'm treating it a lot like sandpaper, so I'm only moving up and down with the grain, never brushing across the grain. Just by doing this has made the wood look amazing. In fact, if I was doing these shelves for the house, this might be the kind of look I would go for. However, as I'm planning on adding some colour, I wanted the space between the grain to be a lot lighter, so I switched to a brass bristle brush, which was a bit harder than nylon, but it's a lot softer than a normal wire brush. As you can see, just with a few passes, it has already added some wonderful contrast to the grain. So I did the whole board to the level that I wanted. Here's a side by side. On the left, with the exception of a test patch, I've only used a nylon brush, so you can really see the difference. And notice how those saw marks are a lot less visible as well. I like the idea of a dark line across the board, so where the grain was really close, I intentionally didn't brush that too much. Once I was finished, I noticed the grain of the wood was starting to raise up. I wasn't expecting this, but I've decided that I really love it. Now that's done, I gave the boards a good clean with white spirit to ensure there was no loose debris or contaminants. Then after that, I left them for a while to dry. Now on to the colouring. I decided to go with red, so I mixed some with water in an old container until I was happy with the colour. For applying things like this, I know a lot of people use these foam applicators on a stick. Personally, I don't really get on with them, so I just use a piece of carb sponge. I didn't go crazy, I only applied very thin coat of my colour mixture, taking my time to work it into the wood. Now, as I've said, I don't really do a lot of woodwork, only really if I have to, but it doesn't mean I don't appreciate these sorts of things, and while I was doing this project I did come to realise how amazing this process can be. You can change what type of wood you're using, you can change how you prepare it, you can change how much you burn it, you can change how much you brush it off afterwards, you can change how you mix the colours, what colours, etc. You can change how you finish it afterwards. You're only really limited by your imagination, and you can nearly always make something that's just unique to you, and you'll know that there's no two the same. So after I let the colour dry, I added another coat. In total I did 4 coats. Lucky for me, even though it was overcast, it was a very warm day, so it did dry out quickly. Lucky for me, I did this on the grass because I made a bit of a mess. After 4 coats, I had a colour I was happy with. I was guessing, because as after I apply a finish, I know it will change the colour, but as I've got no experience to draw on, I'm not exactly sure how it will change. All that's left now is to seal the boards. I had this polyurethane varnish in the shed, which will do just nicely. Here's a little hack I got from a professional painter. If you put some painter's tape around the top of a tin, when you're tipping it out into something else, it won't leave all runs down the side of the tin. So I just poured a little bit on the board at a time, and another fresh piece of sponge cut up just to spread it in. So same as with the colour, I just spread it on thinly. I will say, if you're going to use a sponge like me, don't squeeze the sponge or press down on it too hard, or you'll start making lots of little bubbles which might get stuck in the finish. So after 1 coat you can get an idea of what the finished product is going to look like. I have to admit it's slightly darker than what I was aiming for, but I do really love it. As you can see, there are some little areas along the side there where the varnish didn't quite take, I've just made a mental note at this point, and I'll make sure those areas are well covered when it comes to doing the second coat. So the most time consuming part about this was actually waiting to put the second coat on. You're supposed to give it between 3 to 6 hours. I didn't film myself doing the second coat, it was just more of the same, the only difference being I paid special attention to those areas I missed on the first coat. With the second coat done, they are looking great. I wasn't expecting it, but the grain of the wood has lifted even more, giving them a wonderful feel. I guess if I wanted them completely smooth, I would just keep adding coats of varnish to fill in the valleys. If that's completely wrong, please let me know in the comments, as that knowledge might help someone else that's thinking of doing this in the future. I got up nice and early the next day, still chuffed with how these shells were looking. All I had to do was exactly the same thing to the other side. What could go wrong? It turns out this is what could go wrong. I returned a few hours later to find all these bubbles in the varnish. I did everything exactly the same as yesterday. The only difference I can think of is today the sun was out. Maybe that's an obvious mistake if you know about these things, but in my defence, it doesn't specify on the tin not to use this varnish in direct sunlight. So with my newfound woodwork confidence once again shattered, I decided I would wet sand these areas where the bubbles had formed and then recoat with varnish. Once again, the scientist in me got curious, so I moved my work area into the shade. One board is going to remain in the shade, but the other is about to be exposed to sunlight. So I apply another coat of varnish just to see what would happen. This is where you learn why I'm not a professional scientist. It did have bubbles form again, albeit they were much smaller than the first time. I distinctly remember filming close-ups of them to show you, but I can't for the life of me find the footage anywhere. I can only find this one clip. It's not very clear, but you can just make out some small bubbles in the area the sun is hitting, but there are none on the board that was completely in the shade. If I am completely wrong about this and you do know why this has happened, please let me know in the comments below. Notches up. One bubble right there. Otherwise, looks really good. And all the little bits of nature that's decided to stick to it now the sun's out. The only piece of the bracket kit I am going to use is just some small self-tapping screws, 2 under each bracket, just up into the board to keep it still. Oh wow, that looks good. Looks brilliant. There we go. This is the one everything went wrong on. If you remember from earlier, this one wasn't quite level. I mean, it's nearly level. And I thought ahead. Got myself a packet of glazing packers, so I'm thinking if I put a thin one under one side, might just level it up. There we go, that's bang on now. Find a way to secure those. It's under there. I'll probably get another one in here. I might just have to drill them out to get the screws through. This is the one everything went wrong on. You can see massive gap there. I severely miscalculated that. Generally not too bad. Things like this, you can see gouges out of the wood that are become apparent, but okay, so it's all in the preparation. I could have spent longer prepping these, but as they were only fit in here, didn't bother. Nice run there. On the whole, it's pretty good. For garage shelves, definitely happy with them. Might not be as happy if I was, you know, putting them up in my house, but at least now I've given it a go. I sort of do know what to watch out for and what I can do differently. Well, that's the shelves up. And despite the mistakes that I have made and learnt from along the way, I'm still pretty happy with them. Would I want to hang them in my house? Probably not, but given what I've learnt doing them, it's given me the confidence to try one if I did want one in my house. I'm really happy with the way the combination of the food colouring and the polyurethane varnish have come together to create a really deep glossy red, as well as raising all the grain up. It's really nice texture feel to it now. I realise probably some people would love them dead smooth, and each to their own, but I think it makes them really nice, and them being shelves in a workshop, it just gives a little bit of extra grip for things as well, which is always handy. And of course, burning the wood, the Shou Sugi Ban. I think I'm saying it right now. I do apologise if you're Japanese. I don't mean to butcher your language. It was very time consuming, but I think it was because of that butane torch that I had. It was just laying around. I don't think I'm ever going to use it for anything else, at least not in the immediate future, so I thought I might as well give it a go. I'm pretty sure a lot of people use propane when they do this sort of work. Obviously, this was just a one-off potentially for me, so it weren't worth buying anything especially for the job. And as you can tell, it is possible to get a reasonably nice finish just with that anyway, if that's what you happen to have. I imagine results in doing this could vary wildly depending on what brand food colouring you're using, how you've burnt the wood, and what type of wood you're using. Like I've said, I'm no wood expert. I'm not really sure what type of wood this is. I know it's tree wood, but what tree, I can't tell you. What's surprising to me is how relaxing I found this colouring and varnishing the wood. Normally I hate doing that stuff, but now I'm one step closer to getting things a little bit more tidy and organised around here. I've not put anything up on the shelves yet because they're still tacky, but as it's a nice day outside, everything in nature decides it wants to stick to it, so I've brought them in now to finish curing, and I'll obviously put some stuff on when it's ready. In the meantime, I've got a number of other projects to be getting on with, so until next time, take care.